So this is part two of a video that I've already started. So if you want part one, I will link it into the description where we're going through the Justin Baldoni's Exhibit A. And what we've done already is we've set up that we can start seeing that there is a pattern of behavior and Exhibit A in more detail and seeing how actually, it's possible for anyone to get into toxic relationships and really looking at what happens. Now, again, we're going by what Justin Baldoni's attorney has shared. There might be some evidence that comes out at a later date where we do see that there is significant evidence to show that there was poor behavior on Justin Baldoni. So we're going to try and keep an open mind. But in this, I'm just going by what Justin Baldoni's attorney has provided us so that we can start to see patterns and understand how has this even come about.
Okay, so let's continue. If you haven't watched the first video, I'm looking at the overall setup of the cycle. So, what we're looking at now is there's an allegation that she was exposed around that birthing scene. And actually, what they're saying is that that wasn't the case at all. There was also this allegation that Justin Baldoni's best friend was the actor wasn't being professional either. And he also is trained. So, that there was nothing untoward in that. So remember the cycles that you go through. You go through love bombing, discard, and you go back into love bombing again, where people start being nice again. So they might accuse you of something. And then the next thing they're saying, oh, everything's great. So you feel this sense of, oh, phew. And this happens when you're in these type of relationships where you're almost waiting for it to be okay again, that you're on tender hooks, something's going to go wrong, and then you're waiting, and your actual brain starts to wait for it as well, because the brain understands patterns, so it hangs in there for things to get okay again. So even though she's devalued and she's discarded, she then starts being nice. So she's beginning to be nice again. She's created a sense of calm, and then she's devaluing again. She's taken offense to Justin Baldoni saying that her wardrobe is sexy. Justin Baldoni sounds like he's becoming aware of her mood swings and realizes that she might have taken offense to that. So let me apologize. There was nothing improvised in terms of the scenes where there was kissing, etc. Now, this is another point where she's accusing Heath of showing inappropriate footage to her. Apparently, it was only about a minute. It was just something beautiful, like a baby's just been born, and they're showing the baby. The mother has a towel wrapped around her, and they've just given birth. So things are getting taken out of context, and people are being accused of doing things that potentially they haven't done. The reason why this is so important is because when someone is toxic, what they're doing is they're looking for things to devalue you against. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be real. They're just going to accuse you of things that you might have done in the past. And actually, even that is being taken out of context. So someone might turn around and say to you, you loved all your ex-boyfriends more than you love me. So there's no real way of comparing or even explaining or defending yourself. It's just like their word against yours. They want to take things out of context. They want to make you feel bad about the way you're treating them in some way. So they're purposefully trying to find things to have power and control over you. And the way they have power and control is to make you feel guilt and shame. Please do remember that. That is really important, because if you're being made to feel bad about yourself, that's the devaluation phase. So then they can discard you. So then they can punish you. So first they need to find something to devalue you, like you've done something wrong, if you've made a mistake, and then they devalue you so you feel bad, and then they feel be in a position of power to punish you in some way. So that's a cycle here. Then there's some issues around COVID as far as she was concerned, and she felt that they were deliberately withholding COVID cases from her, which apparently wasn't the case either. I mean, I don't know why anyone would want to deliberately withhold COVID cases from anybody. So this is important now is the Wayfarer were made aware that Lively had placed a call to film's Sony executives to share a few grievances about the comment, about the small video that was seen. I think it was only 60 seconds. And also, Lively shared her grievances about the first assistant director and suggested that she needed her to be replaced. The second assistant director was also a woman, and they had to let her go as well. So it appears that the person that is having the most difficulties with working with people is Blake from this Exhibit A. Baldoni and Heath were told during the call the Sony executive asked Lively if she wanted to take formal action regarding her remarks. Lively proceeded she wasn't interested in pursuing anything formally. Following the conversation, the Sony executive informed Baldoni and Heath of of Lively's narrative, and both of them were stunned by the framing of the events. So what they're saying is that they were stunned that these things were taken out of context. In her later CRD complaint, filed more than a year and a half later, Lively distorted the nature of the call, claiming that she had contacted Sony's executives specifically to file a HR complaint and was told Sony was powerless to act. This is really important. I really do like how if she really wanted something done, she would have made sure that she would have done it. She's been able to change the wardrobe, she's been able to change so many different things. So in this case, if she wants to exhibit power and control over the situation, she is pursuing that and almost threatening people and creating a sense of fear in the environment. And this is really important because what fear does, again, this is really, really important, is it actually triggers your nervous system. So your nervous system is like the most amazing thing in the world. It's like a security system and it's always on guard to see, is something safe? When you're in fear of not knowing how someone's going to react, you don't know if you're going to offend someone, you're walking on eggshells, is that your nervous system goes into high alert and you're on fear and you're on guard 24/7. And your nervous system won't shut off. It's like 24/7. Even when you're sleeping, it's on guard. So, what she's doing is she's getting people to be triggered and be alert into fear, fight or flight or shut down so that she then has more control. So she's using fear to control as a potential here. Baldoni reflected on the conversation and wanted to continue solving the issue. However, Baldoni sensed that Lively was intentionally manipulating the facts. So he's starting to realize that there's concern around here that you've got to be careful with this person. At the end of the day, he wants to just get this film done in some way, shape, or form. And there's hope that maybe this will be okay. Maybe it's just this one thing and it'll be okay. And this is something that continues to happen in toxic relationships. If I can just get through this, maybe they'll just be okay. And you try and appease them and you try and deal with that one thing. But each time you do that, the other person has more and more and more in control. And this is something we can use. This actual case is something where we can really bed that into our understanding that the longer you stay in a toxic relationship and the more you try and appease and try and solve situations, the more control they have overall, where you can get into a position thinking, how did this even happen? Then Lively requests a meeting with Baldoni, the film producer. She wants to sort out all her grievances. And it appears that she spent the past 5 days over analyzing or trying to make things bigger than they really are. Genuinely, toxic individuals can make a mountain out of a molehill. It can just be a tiny thing. And before you know it, they can have a massive grievance over nothing. There is an amazing book as well by Bill Eddy. There's narcissists, but there's also high conflict personalities where they will literally create conflict wherever they go. There are certain types of people that will just be creating conflict all the time. So it's a great book to read if you want to find out more about how to deal with toxic individuals. She started scrutinizing every minor interaction, perceived slight from the previous week. So she's looking for things. Baldoni's apologized, but this is another really key point. You got to remember what the toxic individual is trying to do is to devalue and discard you. And discard is punish you. And then they pull you back in through love bombing so that they can get something else from you. So you get a sense of, oh, it's going to be okay. You get a bit of relief. And then they go through that cycle once again. So when you start apologizing to these people, when they think they've got something on you, they will use that thing over and over again. And you can think, "Oh my gosh, we've already dealt with that. Why are they bringing that up again?" Every tiny small mistake that you make is used to the nth degree, whereas anything they do wrong, they expect you to just move on from. Lively also did acknowledge that Heath wasn't trying to cop a look at this point as well. So they did try and have a meeting. They thought that they'd already resolved things. Neither during the meeting or nor at any other point of production did Lively bring up any more serious allegations that she would later use in the complaint. So it looks like she's maybe added to it at a later stage. After sharing her thoughts during the meeting, Lively was still comfortable inviting Baldoni into a trailer to rehearse lines together while she pumped, which again is really confusing for anyone. So it's really unpredictable behavior. It's like so she's trying to get him to feel safe again, and then she's going to do something to devalue and discard again. Again, facing pressure from Sony and one of the film's producers who believed Lively was no longer responding favorably to the first assistant director. Unfortunately, Baldoni and Heath made the decision to dismiss the first AD. They did feel that she was being scapegoated, and they did feel that she was unfairly. They both expressed discomfort with the decision. Again, remember, she's trying to get power and control. So say if this first AD was onto her, say if that she was aware and she's seeing all these things, she will try and get rid of these people so that she can have her own people that she can manipulate and have power and control over. So that's something to consider. Anyone that stands in the way or tries to show that they are on to the toxic individual, they will try and get rid of them. Anyone where they feel slightly criticized by, they will try and get rid of as well. Beltoni still feeling bad about letting go. And I understand that. When you're someone that's senior and you have to let go of people and you don't really want to, and you feel like they have been treated badly and it wasn't right, it is something that stays with you for some time. And then she's nice again. So remember, we're going back into the love bombing. Now, if you've had to get rid of somebody because of this person, then she's already creating more power and control. Everybody is going to be worried about their job now. If you don't do what Blake Lively wants you to do, you're going to lose your job. So everyone's going to want to be nice to her. That's something to be aware of as well. So now she's being nice. And let's see, is it because she wants something? And they're being so lovely. Now she wants something. She's asking for dailies. So you're getting the pattern now, hopefully. If they're nice, she wants something. So she's going back into the love bombing phase. Baldoni shares this, and obviously he's worried because he's seeing, wow, she could start to edit the movie and dictate which takes to use. So in any toxic relationship, it's always slowly, slowly, slowly. They just keep taking more and more and more and more and more. And there's no boundaries in place. because she hasn't actually signed her contract as well. So the less boundaries she has, the more control she has. Baldoni again chooses to compromise. He's like, "Well, what do I do here? Otherwise, she she might do something else." So then the production was temporarily halted due to the picketing. Wayfarer undertook a significantly costly effort to rework the shooting schedule, and they prioritized the scenes featuring the younger versions of the characters. And this is really interesting because the younger people told them that they loved working with him. Everything was great. Justin Baldoni is in charge and he's doing a great job and everybody loves him. Everybody's loving working with him. He's, oh my gosh, so good, so good. He's been so generous. They love working with him. There's absolutely no issues. And we know at the end, he was isolated from everyone. So we know that it wasn't anything to do with his direct work. Lively checks in, so she's probably feeling a bit insecure. And this happens as well with toxic individuals. If you're getting on with stuff and everything's working out, then they suddenly want to get in touch and see what's going on. Again, he's getting on so well. They're getting with the other cast members, and Lively reaches out again to check in. She wants to get the dailies. She's being nice, but she wants to see what's going on. She wants to know what's happening when she's not there. There's concern, I would have thought, around that. And he reaches out. He's being more than generous, shares with her his favorite scenes. So she's looking to get the cut of the film. In anticipation of the SAG strike ending soon, he reaches out to Lively's representative to say, look, this is when we're going to be working and we want to resume work at this time, November the 15th. Heath reaches out, lawyers getting this saying November the 9th. Obviously, Baldoni wants to make sure that production is resumed, but their plans are disrupted unexpectedly by an unexpected email from Lively's lawyers. The email contains 17 points of non-negotiable conditions that Lively demanded to be met before she returns to work. The list, both in tone and content, appeared to insinuate or outright allege that Baldoni, Heath, and others had engaged in inappropriate conduct during filming. These claims were entirely unfounded and deliberate to insinuate improper conduct by Baldoni and Heath, forcing them to sign without objection if Lively was to resume filming. So they were basically blackmailed to sign this, and without signing it, she wouldn't return to work, and nor does she want to compromise or have to prove any of these allegations beforehand. She just said, if you don't sign this, I'm not going to come back to work. At that time, I would have thought that they wouldn't have thought that she would be using that at a later date. But again, remember, toxic individuals, what they tend to do is they love bomb, they devalue, and then they discard. They're always going to do the discarding at some point. They are going to punish you in some way. This is a level of punishment, but this is just really stepping up the power and control and finding anything to say that your behavior has been bad. And I need to then leverage that at some point to be able to get what I want. Heath contacted Sony to gather their perspective on the 17-point list and return to work conditions, aiming to ensure that any feedback or concerns from their team were also addressed. A producer emails Heath and other members of production to notify them that Lively would be available starting December. So remember, put in so much energy. They've already spent so much money filming. They've done most of the filming or 50% of the filming at this stage. And now she's demanding, if you don't do what I'm saying and sign this stuff that they're already doing, then I'm not going to come back to work. So you're like, well, okay, I'll just sign it potentially. But it's understandable that they would be concerned as well. Production council responds seeking clarification. Wayfarer, Sony, and production respectfully acknowledge that your client has concerns regarding safety, etc. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring safe environment for all involved is paramount. They've agreed on all points. While working through Livy's protection letter for her return to work, Wayfarer Counsel, seeking to keep the production on track, reaches out to Lively's lawyer, agent, and manager to send out the requested production materials. They want to get back to work, basically. They're trying to get her to get back to work quickly, and they're going back and forth. Remember, already she's trying to get the dailies and trying to get control. In light of learning that Lively would not be available for November's shoot, production was reworked and the schedule to begin in December. They're still trying to work with her towards December. Sony executive notifies Wayfarer that Lively has approved the A-list producer and introduces him to Baldoni and Heath. Despite working around the clock to meet December 11 shoot date, Lively is ultimately unavailable and they have to start to resume in mid-January now. So they're investing more time and money into this. So they're more and more invested. Remember the slot machine. You keep investing, you keep investing. And the more invested you are, the more you just want to get to the other end that it'll be okay. Baldoni emailed his teams with notes of his revised script, expressing sadness and frustration over Lively's takeover of the film that they had spent years developing, writing, and funding. Having no energy left to fight, he reluctantly declares he's waving the right flag and submitting, and would give Lively 98% of what she wants. Now, this is really, really important. So, when you're in a toxic relationship, there will come a point where you just want to give up. So, what that is normally when we're in the creative mode, we're in a good space and we're feeling good, we're creating. Then, when we get triggered, our nervous system goes into fight or flight. We're still fighting for our rights at this point. But when we're trying to fight and no one's listening and nothing gets done, we get into this point of helplessness and hopelessness. And then our nervous system moves down into a different state. That goes into more of a shutdown state where we're ready to just give up. It's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just ready to give up. Lots of my clients talk about how they're just procrastinating. They can't do what they used to do. They've just given up on life. They haven't got the energy anymore. And it literally is, you don't have the energy. You're going into shutdown mode. You just don't have the energy. You'll find that you're tired, you're just sitting around, or you might be sleeping a lot. It's more of a depressed state. So, what he's saying here, it really does happen in toxic relationships where you just give up. You're trying so hard. You've tried to fight. You've tried to make reason with someone, explain to someone, and then you just get to a point where you give up. And that is what they want because they're just after power and control. They want you to get to that shutdown phase where you stop fighting. Because every time you fight, they're going to go into devalue and discard. They're going to try and find something on you. They're just trying to pin things on you until you give up eventually. Lively emails Baldoni to request a meeting at her apartment with him. So Baldoni, Heath, and a Sony executive and a producer, the A-list producer, and the film's first AD meet Lively and Reynolds at their New York apartment ahead of the scheduled production. Team arrive prepared with production binders. They're looking at moving forward. Instead, Reynolds then berated Baldoni, demanding Baldoni apologize for things that never happened or were grossly mischaracterized. Okay, this is important. So I know so many of my clients have experienced this, and I've personally experienced this, where you're being told to apologize for something you didn't do. And you are berated, you're being devalued. It's just constant for hours. Sometimes this can happen and you're being told to basically say you've done something you haven't done. And sometimes you just want it to be over. So you will just say sorry. Baldoni, thank goodness, resisted apologizing for the things that he hadn't done, which further enraged Reynolds. Everyone, including the new producer, Livelihood requested, left the meeting in shock. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know if she's just, told Ryan Reynolds things that aren't true. We genuinely don't know. Through Lively's CRD complaint, misleading suggests that the parties agreed to 30 items during this meeting. Many of the items listed in the complaints were entirely new, baseless, and never presented or discussed. That again is is shocking, but it sounds like a lot has been taken out of context. So it's possible that they've just added in some more points to make their CRD complaint sound better. Then Lively admits filming concluded without any further grievances from Lively or references to previous disputes. So it sounds like just from that period, she was okay. Baldoni, his first day back in the edit bay with his two editors, Heath and Baldoni, informed of Lively's request made through the A-list producer to join Baldoni in the editing bay. If it was that bad that she had experienced SH, that does sound really strange, to be honest. In doing so, Lively knowingly infringed on Baldoni's DGA protected editing time. It sounds like that isn't allowed in what she should have been doing. Baldoni sends a group text to Lively, thinking that she'll be the passenger seat. So he's still hopeful that, oh my gosh, we've finished filming. Maybe we're going to get through the other end. But she had other plans. And actually, as you go through this, you will see more and more that she basically got to a point where she was able to take over and start editing the film. And even though Baldoni's cut was seen to be better than Blake's cut, she still managed to get her cut edited. Lively joins the edit with Baldoni and his editors. She shares 7 pages of notes, which Baldoni and editor spent hours implementing, despite Baldoni not agreeing with all of them. So she's taking over. She's got control now. And we have to ask the question, was that the whole purpose of what she wanted to do in the first place? Is that the reason why she accused people of treating her bad so that she could get what she wanted in the end? Despite sharing 7 pages of note, they incorporated them. So she's got the power and control here. She's in control. Baldoni, in mind Lively's threat not to promote the film, continues to encourage Lively to share thoughts with him and the editors while keeping her updated in an effort to keep her happy. So now she's threatening, if you don't let me edit and have my say in editing, I am not going to promote the film. So she's got the power and control. And the reason why she's got that power and control is because she didn't sign her contract. So remember, boundaries. She's not allowing anyone to put any boundaries on her about what is expected from her in order to do the film. Sony informs Wayfarer that Lively has escalated her demands, now requesting solo time in the suite with her own editor, a shocking and unprecedented overreach. So basically now she's got full control over editing. It is shocking. It is I mean, then you have to think, well, she's taking over the film. She's taking over his role. She's come into this role and she's decided she wants to take over this role. Wayfarer reluctantly grant Lively 10 days in the editing room with her personal editor, with the understanding that her ideas will ultimately be incorporated into Baldoni's director cut. Sony and the marketing and Baldoni coordinate efforts to have Baldoni attend the book bonanza, even though is tensions where it appears that Blake Lively wants to be in charge, basically. And she wants to now fully discard him, that he has no role in this whole film whatsoever. Despite the beginning of it, he had the rights. So you can see this timeline is incredible. Justin has bent over backwards for her for months on end. Editor one. People are talking about it. And this is great because she claimed she was unsafe. Lively and the editor work on her cut of the film at Wayfarer and Sony's expense. So they're paying for everything and she's in control. Honestly, this is so typical of a toxic relationship where you're the person taking care of the children, you're the person paying the bills, you're the person doing everything, and they're the ones telling you and being in control and destroying your reputation in the background, saying that you're a terrible person. This is exactly what happens in toxic relationships. Jamie Heath learns that Lively asks Sony to bring another creative collaborator into the cutting room. In response, Sony executive relayed a firm message to Lively saying that this is Wayfarer's movie. Wayfarer has a final cut and runs a process. So she's been just told no. So let's see what she would do because she's been told no. Lively demands an extension of time. They're faced with escalating situation. Wayfarer considers granting the extension, but attached a significant condition that Lively would need to sign her long overdue acting agreement. This document, which left unsigned for over a year, would prevent Lively from continuing to leverage her promotional participation as a bargaining tool. Wayfarer's attorney had been trying to secure her signature, and this moment presented a pivotal opportunity to resolve this standoff. They tried. They tried to regain some control, but will they be able to? Well, Heath is informed that Lively had told Sony Marketing that she would refuse to approve trailers. Okay, so remember, Sony said no to her. Now, this is how she's getting control back of Sony from Sony. So Sony will turn around and Sony requests that Baldoni's film by credit be removed from the film's poster. So she's removing him completely from this film, step by step by step. While Lively is holding the film hostage in the edit room, she's simultaneously stalling the film's marketing by refusing to approve key materials, including trailer release. And within less than 3 months until the film's premiere, Sony becomes increasingly alarmed by the delayed rollout of the trailer. So now she has got control of Sony. In a text exchange between Heath, Sony executive, and Sony marketing executive who had spoken to Lively, they informed Heath of Lively's still escalating demands. Lively will not approve the trailer release until she is granted more time in the edit room. She's saying she wants to control the edit. And she might change her mind about reaching out to Taylor Swift to secure the use of the song for the trailer if her demands are not met. And now basically Sony is on board. You don't want to play ball, you're going to delay and greatly hurt the movie. Good luck. So now Sony are putting the pressure on Baldoni. This is tough. This is tough where she now has power and control over everyone. Even though his cut is better, so it makes sense for it to be his cut. If she has power and control, it won't be his cut, it will be her cut. And basically, she's getting what she wants. So what she's done is she's used all these situations bit by bit by bit. She's made sure that she's not got any boundaries, right? So that she can use that to her advantage. This is key when you're with someone that is toxic, is they are not going to allow you to put boundaries in place. And if you find people that don't allow you to put boundaries in place, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. You're going to try and make the best out of the situation. Remember the slot machine, you're going to just keep putting more and more money in. And the more and more you invest into it, the worse it gets. And this is where she's got full power and control. She's editing, she's kicking Baldoni out of his own film. Now, this is another point that I really want to bring up. When your nervous system starts shutting down, you will get sick sometimes. If you're being in a toxic relationship over a period of time, this level of stress, of not knowing how to deal with someone, and it's constant. And what happens when you're in a toxic relationship? You deal with one disaster, but then another one comes, and another one comes, and another one, and it gets faster and faster and faster, to the point you just feel exhausted. You can't deal with all the issues that are coming. So you do wave the white flag and you do start to shut down and you get ill. And he got ill. That's what happens. Your nervous system, the level of cortisol and the adrenaline going on around you, and his back went. He just doesn't feel supported. And now look at this. She got everybody on her side. She paid for things so that it looked like he was the bad one and she had all these people on her side. And now she's charming them to be on her side so that then she's got this narrative that he was the bad person. So maybe she's feeding them her side of the story as well. And so they're just going with it. People just go with it without finding out all the facts. Now, Baldoni waives his film buy credit, and Wayfarer also reluctantly give Lively a producer credit on the film. This is so sad. I'll be honest, this is so, so sad. He literally took everything away. And this is what toxic relationships do. They literally break you down to the point you have nothing. They want to break you down. They want to destroy you to the point you have nothing. You financially, emotionally, psychologically, you don't know who you are anymore. You lose your confidence. It's like your friends, you feel shame, you feel guilt because you don't know what is being said about you, all these lies, you're being discredited. This is all continuing. Sorry, I'm going to speed through this now. Then we know that there was a disaster of her promoting her the way she promoted the film. It was awful. I mean, she even got a PGA, even though they didn't really want to give her that. They even gave that to her, that even though they didn't feel that it was appropriate. So she started promoting the film. And what happened was that people started to say, hey, you don't promote a DV film with alcohol or talking about your hair care products or grab your florals and let's go out and watch this film. This is like a really deep, meaningful film where people want to be seen, heard, and understood. The pain that you go through, it's unreal. And you just want someone to understand all the mechanics of what happens to you. Like we've been through this exhibit A, there's so much that goes into every single DV story. If you have been through DV, you could spend hours, you could write a whole book on what's happened. People could create a film on what you've been through. That's how painful and that's how important all the small pieces are. What people don't realize is pain from 1,000 paper cuts. No one can see these paper cuts because they're so small. If I had 1,000 paper cuts on my hand from this experience, my hands are useless because I'm dealing with so much pain. That's what it is to deal with DV. There's so many moments where you just hurt over and over and over and over again. And people don't realize. Then there's the rest of the exhibit is all about how there was some miscommunications and there's different characters in terms of PR. And he was falsely accused of a smear campaign towards Blake Lively. Actually, what they're saying in this is that it was her own way of promoting the film, which was tone deaf towards DV survivors. And yes, it was. I can agree with that. And that she created that organic backlash. The worst part of this is, and I'm going to summarize, go to that point, is that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively then wanted Justin Baldoni to actually take ownership of that and actually take responsibility for her and what she had done. They didn't provide all the evidence in their concrete evidence that they provided. He was in the basement. That says it all to me. That he ended up there and he was just disregarded and that is the cycle, remember? you get discarded at the end. And it's just awful to be treated in that manner after everything that you've been through. It appears that her side was trying to plant a smear campaign against him, but he still wasn't trying to do a smear campaign on her because he wanted the film to succeed. And that does make sense as well. So please do go through this in your own time, but I'm just going to get to that point where Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds wanted them to actually take ownership of her bad publicity. So this was a statement prepared by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds on behalf of Baldoni, Heath, and Wayfarer. It ends with us. So this is what they wanted him to take ownership over. It Ends With Us was a troubled production, which we thought take full accountability for, and we are very sorry to everyone we caused upset to privately and publicly. Blake Lively, Colin Hoover, and the entire cast and crew led with professionalism every step of the way. Any negativity aimed at them is ours to own. I don't know, make it make sense. Like, why would any negativity to them be theirs when it was created by them? I don't know. I mean, I don't think that would have landed well with the public because that is gaslighting. We mutually agreed that the cast would be promoting the film separately and understood why. We've always said that we are not perfect, and even if unintentionally make mistakes, we will always own them. But they're not willing to own their mistakes. We hold ourselves accountable. It's not anyone's job but ours, and that's the part of being man enough. There's a little pun there, and I think that is their sense of humor coming through. We will practice what we preach. We are learning and growing from the experience, and we thank everyone for their patience. So they basically said, no, we're not doing that. And I think it was that no that then escalated things even more, where if we look at August the 12th, and I think if we look at the metadata, it was around that time that the New York Times started working on their article that they published in December. So this is all really insightful. And I'm sure we're going to be breaking it down even more at some point. But I just wanted to spend some time to go over the whole Exhibit A and really look at how toxic relationships come about and the cycles, and why, when you start seeing yourself being taken through love bombing, dis- devaluation, discard, love bombing, that you really need to take a moment to get some support. Honestly, because it's just going to get worse. And this shows us how things can escalate to the point they will destroy you completely. So, and it's also really important to acknowledge that these type of situations cause trauma. And that means that your brain starts to function differently. Your brain starts to trigger your nervous system to go into fight, flight, or freeze or fawn. And it's really important to actually heal that so that you can get back to a space of creativity. And I think in Justin Baldoni's, some of his emails, he even acknowledges that you can't be in a space of creativity when you're living in this fear all the time. And that is completely true. That's why you go into survival mode and you don't come out and get back into thrive mode. So for Justin Baldoni, he will need to heal his trauma. He will need to find his way back to being creative again and release this trauma. And part of actually standing up and speaking up is helping people who have been through DV in a big way, because we're seeing how there is financial abuse, there are cycles of abuse, and how little things happen over time where they get power and control, and it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone. And nobody is immune to a toxic individual. And it's really important that we get the message out to notice these patterns. And if you see someone else going through them, to notice them. And also, if you see someone being isolated and treated badly, like Justin Baldoni was right at the end, try and find out what actually happened. What happened to this person, so that you can then support them. Don't just assume that, what one person's saying is the truth about another, because normally the toxic individual always comes across better in terms of they're the victim, and they can act and play the victim a lot better than the person that who really is the victim. Look, I really hope going through this was insightful for you and hopefully healing, where you feel seen, heard, and understood in your own journey. I'd love to know what you've learned about yourself, and maybe you've had an aha moment and maybe you've healed in some way through going through this. If you are looking for healing, please do look in the resources section. I do have different programs. You can even book in a one-to-one with me where we can look at what is it that you actually need. And I'm sorry if you have been through something like this. It's just the worst thing ever. Please know that you're not alone, and to keep focusing on who you want to become. Don't let anyone hold you back from fulfilling your dreams because of someone else's need for power and control over you. I'm sending you so much love. Till next time.